Tell me about Days of Thunder and how that played into you becoming a crew chief.
Well, it's a unique story there a little bit. When we had the chassis shop set up, it took us a while to get it up and running. We'd built several chassis, pretty much our design, the Chevy's design, and everybody else's design was all in one. And we tried to do what was right and what was wrong. But we had a bunch of test cars sitting there that we went and the GM in the wind tunnels, the vehicle handling facilities, but that was when NASCAR stepped up and says, okay, you can only get so many tests per year. The teams we had then, we didn't have that many tests. So we were really looking for something to do. And then all of a sudden, here comes Paul Newman, Cruz, and all of them through the chassis shop with Rick. And said, we might do a movie. So that's when the Days of Thunder thing started. So I said, there you go. I said, we can do this. And I said, this will give us opportunity to test some of the test cars we had built that we just had sitting there that were waiting for the teams to get them to go race them. And we couldn't go test them. So it gave us an opportunity to test the cars. In fact, I'm kind of reading between the lines a little bit here, but that gave us an opportunity to slide in between NASCAR stuff. But we started the Days of Thunder deal, and that was very unique. It was different.
In what way was it?
The way they go about doing stuff, the thing about it is, we had about 4 or 5, maybe 6 test cars in our chassis shop at that time that built different ways, short track, speedway, whatnot. And they were all good cars. And, then Days of Thunder come in and, some of the key grips and stuff said, well, we're going to need probably 50 cars. So we don't have 50 cars, and we can't produce 50 cars. I said, but that's when they outsourced everything and got old cars that other teams had. It didn't matter if they were Fords, Chevys, or what. They would put aluminum body on. Not for us. We wouldn't do that. We only, in Days of Thunder, my shop, when I say my shop, it's our shop, only had the real race cars, the cars that would actually go through inspection with a little work, and to be able to get them on the track. That's what NASCAR wanted, because that was their deal. Now, the scenes you see, cars going up in the air, blowing up and all this stuff, turning over, those were not the cars we did. We did the actual cars that had
that were actually in the race.
Yeah, had the $200,000 cameras mounted to them. Those are the cars we had where they would be safe. But it was fun.
How much contact did you have with the stars of the movie? I mean, Tom Cruise and Randy Quaid and Robert Duvall. Did you get to meet Nicole Kidman?
Yes, I did.
Hello.
Yes, hello. During that movie, now this is a good old country boy version of this whole story. During the movie, they would need people for backdrops and whatnot, guys walking around with the uniforms on and all that stuff. And they come over there and told us to go put some uniforms on. We was going to do this, going to do that, and went in this trailer and was in there changing uniforms, putting uniforms on, being fitted for uniforms, and kind of Nicole was back there in the back, and she was about half dressed, and just nonchalantly just going about her business like it didn't matter if we were there looking at her or not,
Now we're getting something.
Yeah, and, but that's one fond memory I had during that whole deal was meeting Nicole, and she's a great person, great actress. great actors. But I got to know all the actors pretty much in the whole deal. So,
Really?
yeah, I guess fond memories was sitting in Daytona at a wrap party after all the shooting was done, sitting in Daytona and having a wrap party and sitting on a sofa with Robert Duvall having a couple shots of liquor. That was really like, I can't believe I'm sitting there talking to Robert Duvall having a drink with him. And but then I got to know all of them pretty much. Randy Quaid, didn't get to do much with him, but I knew him and met him. But in Cruz, I met Cruz right from the get-go. Actually, before the movie started, over at Charlotte, that whole deal they shot over there, I was there. But it was my fondest memory was when we went to. It was me and a couple more guys went to L.A. to Paramount to do sound bites and stuff and do all that stuff. We sit down in a movie theater and watch what they had, all the footage of what they had, and they'd ask us questions about, well, what is that guy saying there? It might be Leonard Wood talking to Eddie or something, and I'd say, talking about how to get the car better and stuff on the radio. Anyway, we went out there for that, and Michael Rooker, he come up and he said, I'm going to pick you up tomorrow morning at the hotel, and we're going to go to breakfast. That's okay. So we ended up for a week or two, every day, Michael Rooker would come pick us up at the hotel, and he'd take us over to his house, and we'd have breakfast and stuff at his house. That's the fondest memory. And that guy is a down-to-earth family man, and had a wife and a child, and they treated us like royal.
He was the bad guy in the movie.
I know, but he wasn't in my heart. He was a great guy. He was fun to be around.
Did you get to keep, or did you keep, any memorabilia or anything from the movie?
Yes. Yeah, I kept some of the uniforms, of the City Chevrolet uniforms, a bunch of the artwork and stuff for some of the scripts that Tony Scott had handwritten. Pictures, naturally, just in my hangar. It's always on the wall. It's just Days of Thunder stuff. He kept things like the card that was your pass to get on the set was a card about that big, like it's a big old cardboard card. That was your pass to get on the set. I kept that one. I kept that, and it's framed and hanging on my wall. And it was a major accomplishment, I felt like then, even though from racing it was kind of like it was my transition into being a crew chief. Let's put it that way. I learned a lot and learned to save a little bit, and it was fun. I mean, it was just tons of stuff, Rick, that we had tons of stuff. Had so much stuff from the movie that we couldn't even get it in the shop. It was piled up out back, covered up under tarps, and just like, it was crazy. And Days of Thunder went over budget a lot, they said. I don't remember the amount, but it was a lot. And you can see why, because they would have some big parties, some good parties. But they would spend a lot of money.
So, were you basically the crew chief for the movie effort? Were you kind of overseeing that, or is that how you transitioned into?
We had I'm gonna say it this way. I won't call no one's names. They know who they are. We had a bunch of good guys that worked at Hendrick in different teams and stuff. So when we did, and then we started the chassis program, we utilized some of those people. Then I was pretty much their boss. Then Days of Thunder came. I still remained their boss, and we would and we were the group of guys that could get it done. They called us the Can Do group, and we would get it done. But yeah, that was probably my transition into being a crew chief, handling all the different situations that you had. And the other thing too is that particular time in the sport, there was a lot of drivers that didn't have rides. We had I probably can't remember all of them. I remember it was several of them. Hut Strickland was one. Sachs was one. Tommy Ellis, we hired him. I think Rick Mass might have been one of them. So we had, and there's a few more, but we would take that group of guys and we take them to the racetrack. And those, and I just couldn't be stretched, but so far. I would say, okay, one of the guys in the shop, I'd say, well, you handle taking Tommy, you be his crew chief, and you be his crew chief, and I'll be Sachs's crew chief. And we'd go to the racetrack, and we'd all work together, and we were all together. But the final decision came down to about everything made decision-wise. They'd come to me and ask me what I thought and what. And hell, I was pretty much young to being a crew chief. I wasn't really a crew chief. I was a crew chief in the movie. I mean, I was helping make the movie. I wasn't Harry Hogg, So
now, are you actually in the credits?
Rick Hendrick is. I'm not, because I work for
You're not.
Yeah. Maybe somewhere I am. I mean, I did. Yeah, I know. They made a bunch of oh man, they did a bunch of stuff as far as getting programs together. Jerry Bunch was he would come in and do interviews and stuff, and they made a bunch of those tapes and stuff for making how the movie was made. I'm in some of that stuff, but I never got credit. I actually auditioned for a part of being the crew chief.
Really?
Yeah, and I didn't get it. The other guy, the actor, got it. So, but anyway, it was good. It was fun.
Could have been your big break.
Hey, I know. So, I guess it probably was really, and I didn't know it so much at the time. But after the movie was done and we went down, sat down, ate popcorn, and watched it, the premiere, they shot so much footage of that movie that they could have made 3 or 4 different movies of the same thing. But I liked that version. They showed it at the premiere, and we took and I remember leaving the theater that night thinking, well, what am I going to do now? So what's next for me? So I said, well, I'll go back to doing what I was doing, is running the chassis program. And we did that, and everybody went back to work. And Rick and Jimmy Johnson, the manager, came down to the shop one day after the movie, and I guess they were having some problems with getting the right people to do the right thing. And one of the problems, I think, was Waddell and Randy were oil and water, and they just didn't see eye to eye on a lot. Dorton, yeah, and Rick and Jimmy, I don't remember which one said what, but said they're looking for somebody to be a crew chief for the 5-car team. And I said, well, I threw some names out there. We were doing some ARCA racing with Sachs and stuff like that.
We've done some cup racing.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. And and with a group of misfits we had. And but we ran good about everywhere we went and everything.
Well, I was actually going to ask. Once you got to race with Greg, you got second place finishes at Talladega in Michigan. You got a pole. For the 400 in
Daytona.
How big a deal was that for that program, being just basically part-time?
Well, everything was Sachs, and everything that Sachs drove was a Hendrick chassis. Actually, the number one chassis happened to be a Speedway car, and Rick still got it, I think. I'm not sure, but we raced Sachs in places like Talladega and Daytona, and he done real well in them. And that was kind of like an extension to our chassis program, having Sachs run some races to get around the NASCAR rule, for testing. And we did that, and that went real well. And everything seemed to go pretty easy. And like I say, we only had a group of when we would make the race, we would have the problem of then the problem would come up to, well, we got to have a pit crew. We didn't even have a pit crew. So we'd have to bombard and steal and put together whatever we could to make the pit crew. So then we got back at the shops, we got to practicing pit stops and whatnot, and got a couple ringers come in from other teams and stuff, and we kind of put a pit crew together. Well, hell, it ended up we were better. We were better than our teams was. And like, well, it's not me doing it. It's just like we just happened to be in a lucky spot and got the right people. So we did that. And so anyway, Rick and Jimmy come in, and they wanted to know who we could get to be a crew chief for the 5-car team. And I threw some names out there I didn't really know. I mean, I knew some guys I'd worked with, and we took and a few weeks later, Rick and Jimmy come back in, and Rick walked up to me and shook my hand. Said, well, good to see you too, sir. And he said, no, he said, you gonna be our new crew chief. I said, what? Yeah. I said, you gonna make me a crew chief for the 5-car team. So that Waddell left to go to the engine shop to work in the engine shop with Randy. I don't know how long that lasted. I don't think it lasted very long. And then I was thrown into the 5-car team with Ricky Rudd.